There is a town in Tierra del Fuego, Argentina, called Ushuaia, or Ushuaia. Ushuaia is at the very southern tip of the continent. To give you a sense of how remote this place is, how far away it is from everything else, the distance from Ushuaia to Buenos Aires, both in Argentina, is 2.5 times as far as the distance from Ushuaia to Antarctica. The nickname for this town is Fin del Mundo, the end of the world, and it knows how to play the part. The day I arrived, the sky was a dramatic, stormy gray with low, misty clouds. The mountains visible on all sides were dark and sharply peaked and craggy and ominous, with ice dotting their sides. The town seemed forlorn, forgotten. It really felt like I'd arrived at the end of the world. But in the morning, when I set off on my first hike, the sun came out, and the day was bright, and I found myself on a beautiful mountain trail alongside burbling streams crossed by wooden footbridges into green meadows. The mountains were still in view all around, but against the now blue sky, I could see that they had green forests below those rocky peaks, which now looked inviting instead of foreboding. And there were travelers all around me, many of whom, incidentally, were speaking Hebrew. And eventually, we all made our way up the beautiful valley to a turquoise glacial-fed lake, where everyone sat to rest and picnic. An adorable Patagonian Sierra finch hopped up on the log where I was perched as I ate my sandwich. What had seemed like the end of the world turned out to be remarkably bucolic. In our Parsha this week, our ancestors feel like it's the end of the world. Korach the Levite confronts Moses and Aaron, challenging their authority with a populist claim to power. He rallies many leaders to his side and eventually mobilizes the entire Israelite people against Moses and Aaron, creating a crisis of leadership. God intervenes, opening the earth like a gaping maw to swallow Korach and his 2 sidekicks, Datan and Abiram, and their families, burying them alive. The 250 men of repute who followed them are then consumed by God's fire. And still, even after that, the whole community of Israel continues to turn against Moses and Aaron. The populist rebellion is not put down even after the deaths of its leaders. And finally, a plague breaks out among the Israelite camp, killing 14,700 people, until Moses and Aaron are finally able to stop it. Now, often this parsha raises questions for us like, what makes for good leaders? Why are ambitious populists so able to deceive people? When is rebellion, speaking about Torah, when is rebellion justified? Some of these are the very questions that our B'nai Mitzvah will be asking tomorrow. But for me this year, Parshat Korach is bringing up a different question. What does it do to us when we feel like it's the end of the world? There's some context you need in order to understand why I'm asking this question. In last week's Parsha, the Israelites are told by God that because they turned against God after hearing the fearful report of the spies, almost all of them are going to die in the wilderness. When they left Egypt, you might remember, they thought they were going to the promised land. They thought they were going to make it there in their lifetimes, but now they learned that they will not. Instead, everyone over 20 years of age is going to die in the wilderness. Almost everyone. They've proven that they don't have what it takes to enter the promised land. So they're going to spend the remainder of their lives wandering in the wilderness, and then they're going to die. It feels to them like a death sentence. It feels to them like the end of the world. Ramban says, now as long as Israel was in the wilderness before this, no evil happening befell them. For even after the incident of the golden calf, which was a serious and well-known sin, those who died were few. The people were saved by Moses' prayer. Thus they loved Moses as they loved themselves, and they obeyed him, so that had anybody rebelled against Moses at that time, the people would have stoned him. But when, after the sin of the spies, the decree against them was thus not annulled, and it was decreed that the whole people would be consumed in the wilderness, and there they shall die, the mood of the whole people became embittered. And therefore Korach found it an opportune occasion to contest Moses' deeds, thinking that the people would readily listen to him. Feeling that it is the end of the world, they are embittered. And not only that, they're also panicked. After the sin of the spies and before the rebellion of Korach, the people get aggressive. They foolishly attack the Canaanites and Amorites despite the warnings of Moses and God. Moses and God try to tell them this is not the time to fight. They have no protection and they will not win, but they do not listen, and they hastily go into battle and they are routed. And then the very next thing that happens after their disastrous foray into combat is Korach's revolt. The people are in no position at this point to assess the situation rationally. They're in no position to make good choices. They are embittered, they are panicked, they are aggressive, they are not calm, cool, or collected. They are whipped up into a frenzy. They are out of their heads, they are desperate. It feels to them like the end of the world. Now you might remember, I'm imagining maybe a little hard to remember at this point, that after Election Day last November, a lot of people felt like it was the end of the world. And feeling like it was the end of the world was actually kind of familiar because of October 7th and the war in Gaza, which has felt like the end of the world for a long time. And the ever-increasing craziness on the left and the right in this country, and anti-Semitic threats and violence from so many directions, and climate catastrophes with no plan, and the danger of AI, and the list of things that make us feel like it's the end of the world is long. And for the last 6 months, you've been going through one of the most difficult times, I imagine, in your lives as citizens or residents of this country. You've experienced a barrage of lies, distortion, chaos, corruption, destruction, acts of cruelty. Add to that one of the most difficult times to be people who care deeply about Israel and Israelis, to be people who care deeply about Palestinians in Gaza. These aspects of being American Jews have been tied together, intertwined in what seems to me to be the most disturbing and confusing kind of way. You might remember that I thought about canceling my sabbatical because I didn't want to leave you during a time that promised to be so chaotic and so brutal. But I knew you were in excellent hands, and you were, it turns out. From all accounts, our clergy team and our leadership and our staff rose to this moment brilliantly. No surprise. I thank God, and I thank them, and I thank you that I was gifted with the experience I had. I don't know that I've ever been so refreshed, so renewed, so resourced by any 6 months of my life. And I stand before you lighter and brighter and more joyful and more directed toward the Holy One of Blessing than I was before. These 6 months gave me perspective. And the first thing I saw was how much I had lost perspective. I had no idea how small my mental construct of the world had become. You don't know what you don't know. And when you have to defend who you are all the time, you get tired. And then everything starts to feel like a struggle, and a closed-in, limited, narrow view starts to seem like reality. And I think when one thing starts to seem like the end of the world, then lots of things start to seem like the end of the world. On sabbatical, I saw so clearly that when we are embattled or embittered or panicked, when our nervous systems are dysregulated, for very good reasons, because how could they not be? When our world becomes narrow or constricted by a barrage of bad news, we have less to offer. We have less ability to see possibility, to be creative, expansive, to make good decisions, to reach out, to trust, to believe, to try something new, to try something old, to remember and feel God's presence. Only when I had distance, only when I had time, only when I was immersed in unfamiliar places and wide open spaces, did my world open again. Did I remember how small I am and how big it all is, which was my goal. How beautiful and how magnificent and how eternal. While you were grappling with things here, I was far, far away with no media and no social media. And though by now I have been fully briefed, I will never know what it was like to live here for these last 6 months. Did it sometimes feel like the end of the world? Does it now? I want to listen to you. I want to understand what it did to your heart, and to your mind, and to your body, and to your sense of hope, and to your faith in humanity, and to your feelings about being a Jew and about being an American. Even just since I've been back, the mayoral election in our city has seemed to some people like the end of the world. And I know we're going to be talking about it a lot. And I'm going to have a lot of opportunities to share more about my experience with you over the coming months and years. But for tonight, I simply want to say that it is not the end of the world. Not the current presidency. Not the mayoral election. Not even climate change. Not even close. The world goes on and on. The universe, the earth, life, even humanity, even the Jewish people will go on. Long past our lives, long past our age, long past all of the crises with which we are concerned. The world is not ending, but we will die while we are still in the wilderness, confused and wondering, because that is the human condition. And the crises with which we are concerned, questions of who belongs, questions of different paths to safety for our people, questions of caring for the other and the stranger and the self, questions of how to live on this earth responsibly, of compassion versus cruelty, of honesty versus mendacity, of humility versus grandiosity, of righteousness versus corruption. These questions are just as pressing and just as urgent and just as important as we think they are. It's just that they're taking place in this brief flash and blink of light. It's just that they're taking place in this blue-green marble that is full of lush, glorious life. It's just that they're taking place in the vast, expanding, glittering space. It's just that God is here, right here, in us, and around us, and beyond us, all the time. It's just that we get this one crazy experiment of being alive and trying to do it well. And even though we are so small, it's our entire purpose for our existence to give our whole selves to that effort. Our lives, our world, even our challenges look different with a little perspective. The world is not ending. If it feels like that, it's time to take a break. It's time to get some distance. This life is a miracle. It's going to be short, and it's happening now. We have work to do for 6 days out of every week that we've been given to be alive. Our work is simple. Do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. That's it. Shabbat shalom.